In my previous two videos, I took a look at first what I call the dark age of anime arena fighters, where I covered the oversaturation of the arena fighter genre, as well as why most of them suffer from the same issues. I then took a look at the opposite, the positives of arena fighters, and while they still deserve a place in the anime game market. Today, I want to combine the two ideas and develop a theoretical solution to the anime game market to satisfy fans of arena fighters, 2D fighters, and anime game fans of other genres too. So, let's get started. The ideal solution would be an idea that I like to call the Dragon Ball method. In terms of anime franchises with video game adaptations, Dragon Ball has the best variety of game genres, with regular releases that cater to every group of players. We have competitive multiplayer games, casual multiplayer games, and single player games. For competitive multiplayer games, the obvious answer is Dragon Ball FighterZ. The 2D fighter is often cited as the best Dragon Ball game out there. In terms of casual multiplayer games, currently there's Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, which offers both PvP and PvE modes. Sparking Zero is also set to launch later this year, and the 3D Arena Fighter should have a chance to cater to both competitive and casual players, as long as the fighting system is easy to learn, yet difficult to master. And finally, we have Dragon Ball Kakarot, which is a single-player story-focused experience. While Xenoverse 2 did release 8 years ago, it still received new DLC and a next-gen console upgrade this year. Dragon Ball FighterZ released 6 years ago, but it also received a major update this year, in the form of rollback netcode and next-gen console upgrades. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot even got new DLC this year as well. Not to mention, additional spin-off games releasing recently, like Dragon Ball The Breakers in 2022, and Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission in 2019. So to summarize, we've gotten 5 games in the last 8 years. FighterZ for competitive players, Xenoverse 2 for casual players, Kakarot for single players, and the Breakers and Heroes World Mission as bonuses. Not to mention, Sparking Zero releasing later this year. A lineup full of different genres for different fans is obviously the ideal solution, but the problem is that Dragon Ball is one of the most popular and profitable franchises in the world. Very few anime could afford this much output. The only other series I could realistically see being able to afford to release 3 different types of games on a regular basis would be Naruto and One Piece. Naruto already has the Storm series as well as Shinobi Striker. The next Naruto game should either be a single-player story-focused game, like Rise of a Ninja and the Broken Bond, or a competitive online game like FighterZ. One Piece has had 2 single-player games recently, with World Seeker and Odyssey, as well as 2 casual multiplayer games with Pirate Warriors 4 and Burning Blood. I think the next step for One Piece would be a competitive online game, as there's enough to satisfy casual fans already. The ideal solution for mega popular franchises like Dragon Ball, Naruto, and One Piece is to regularly release and support games for 3 different types of fans. So where does that leave us for medium-sized franchises? I would consider series like My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, and Jujutsu Kaisen to be medium-sized in terms of popularity. They've all sold incredibly well, but because they're newer franchises than the previous ones I mentioned, they don't currently have the long-lasting legacy and fan base to support many different games at once. That's why I believe that a 2-game solution could work. For example, My Hero Academia has My Hero One's Justice 2 and My Hero Ultra Rumble. While One's Justice did get its final DLC in 2022, and Ultra Rumble released a year later in 2023, I still think 2 games could be supported at once, that is, if one of them is single-player focused. Picture this. We first get a single-player open-world action game similar to Spider-Man and the Batman Arkham series. This game could get regular updates in the form of additional story missions and cosmetics like costumes. Then we could also have a new fighting game, most likely a One's Justice 3, that takes advantage of the potential of its predecessors and delivers a new polished experience, one that gets regular DLC in the form of balance patches and new characters. With both of these games, you're able to satisfy all different types of fans. For those who prefer single-player games, you have the action game, and for those who prefer multiplayer, you have the fighting game. And in this scenario, One's Justice 3 could appeal to both casual and competitive fans. One's Justice 2 is regarded as one of the best arena fighters, and with the right budget and development time, I believe that One's Justice 3 could be complex enough to satisfy competitive players, as well as easy enough to learn to satisfy casual players. The dual game solution could work for most medium-sized franchises. For Jujutsu Kaisen, we get a single-player action game, as well as a 2D fighter. Demon Slayer could get a single-player Musou game, and a 3D arena fighter. A 3D arena fighter, when done right, like Kill la Kill If, can appeal to both casual and competitive players. And when it's backed by a popular franchise like Demon Slayer, then it can definitely afford the budget to reach that level. However, that brings us to smaller franchises. Smaller franchises include series like Kill la Kill, One Punch Man, and 7 Deadly Sins. While these series still maintain a fan base, they're just not popular enough to warrant supporting multiple games at once, or even regular new game releases for that matter. That's why games for these franchises need to match their source material as best as possible. While popular franchises like Dragon Ball can experiment with multiple different genres to see which feels the most like Dragon Ball, these smaller franchises can't afford to mess around, and they need to get it right on the first shot, or else publishers won't see any reason to invest in another game. That's why they just can't all be arena fighters. While it can work in the case of a series like Kill la Kill If, and Arena Fighter just doesn't work for something like One Punch Man. I'd even argue that a multiplayer game doesn't work for One Punch Man. It's much more suited to a single player game like a Musou game, but at the end of the day, there's really only one solution. Anime game publishers and developers just need to make better games. We can sit and argue all day about how 3D Arena Fighters ruined anime games, or how not every game can be a 2D fighter, but Bandai Namco could drop the greatest arena fighting game of all time tomorrow, and people would still complain that it's an arena fighter. But at the end of the day, what really matters is just making a good game. The problem with that is that greedy publishers like Bandai Namco just don't care. They know that if they put barely any time and money into an anime game, they'll probably still make their money back, because anime fans will buy anything as long as it has Satoru Gojo in it. We've gotten countless anime games with incredible potential that just didn't succeed because they were rushed or lacked budget. Kill la Kill If, My Hero One's Justice 2, it's happened far too many times, and Bandai Namco will continue to let it happen time and time again. While we still occasionally get other publishers like Sega for Demon Slayer, most anime games are published by Bandai Namco, and honestly, if they didn't hold so many anime licenses, we could probably be in a better situation. If anime licenses were divided amongst many different developers, it would breed competition and actually push developers to want to outsell each other by producing the best game possible. But no, Bandai knows that they can't be touched, so they're going to just do whatever they want to do. So, if Bandai Namco doesn't want to offer the solution, then what is there to do? We as consumers need to offer the solution, and that is by just not buying these new games. Everyone knew Curse Clash was going to be bad before it even released, and yet countless people still bought it. It may not have actually set a record for the most refunds, but the fact that so many people believed it still sent a message that we want something better. And that's how we can bring about the solution. We need to speak with our wallets. We need to demand more. We need to demand better. And when Sparking Zero does release, and if it does live up to the expectations, then be vocal about why it is good, and how it does it better than every other anime game out there right now. Nothing happens if nothing happens. The only way for something to happen is to make it happen. And since publishers and developers won't make it happen, that responsibility falls to us. God, that was really corny.